Good
Cabbage.
morning, man. We all were having our. You see me drinking this thing during the show. It's this.
Cabbage.
It's mixture. It's cabbage, man, and Audrey puts it in the blender and grinds it up. Cabbage, kiwi, and apple, and it's really good for putting good, bacteria into your system, to your gut or whatever it is. Doesn't taste bad. It's kind of like, remember the Little Rascals, the old ones?
Yes.
They would all take their spoonful of castor oil, whatever that was.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, and that stuff was pretty gnarly.
Not here. Not at your house.
Yeah,
You got the cabbage.
Yeah, and we got cabbage this morning,
And
but it's good.
You know what I get from my wife?
Seltzer?
Oh, I don't have a wife. For myself, I'm lucky if I get a Bang energy drink. Ooh.
Man, that stuff is bitter, but it's good. It's really good. You should try some. Well, those energy drinks, those things can get you really jacked up. Got some coffee coming. Mitch Davis, MitchDavisShow.com is in the bullpen. He'll be.
Is that what we call it? We should call it the bullpen from now.
The bullpen, yeah, he's in the bullpen, ready to start throwing some heat. He'll be with us in just a second. We also have Franz Beard going to check in with us, and I think mathematically he's going to tell us how the Gators are going to win the national championship in every sport.
Mathematically?
Yeah, I like it. I like the optimism. But we got a lot to cover.
It was a rough one, by the way.
SEC basketball over the weekend.
Tough for the Gators.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at South Carolina.
Sad today.
Not an easy to play. You know, one thing, South Carolina was rolling in the SEC, and then they took a couple of hits. They lost by 40 at Auburn, by 1 at home against LSU. Then they bounced back. And now they've got Tennessee coming to town, I think Tuesday, tomorrow night, over in Columbia. So look, get pen and paper handy and smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner that says YouTube and allow notifications. That allows you to get notifications when we do the show. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your family about SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU. 16 teams in this league.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Hey, Mitch Davis, MitchDavisShow.com is in here with us right now. I just got to say this on the front end. Horns down is what he's doing. On the front end, Cheryl Chambers, this woman is really cool. I've gotten to know her. She watches the show, listens every day. Cheryl Chambers, I got to say, she's got kids and grandkids that are fans of about 8 different schools, but she is a diehard Memphis Tiger fan. That comeback yesterday, Tigers down by 22 at the Forum against UAB, came back and won by like 18 or 19. That comeback will go down as, I think, the greatest comeback maybe certainly
ever
of this year, but I have not seen one like that. Good win for the Tigers. Cheryl Chambers, all my Tiger friends and fans, I loved watching that yesterday against UAB. Andy Kelly got an early exit, but look, lot to talk about, man. We got college basketball. It's March the 4th. Can you believe it? Already March 4th. And Mitch, Chris Jans, watched him and Mississippi State play at Auburn. Auburn jumped on top early. Ironically, the 2 lowest scoring first halves in SEC basketball this season for Mississippi State have come against the Auburn Tigers. One, a win at the Hump back in January, and then this one down at the Neville Arena. But I tell you what, they can shoot the ball. They're a team. They definitely deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. Again, not saying it to placate you, nor is Brenden. I'll tell you one thing. I will rip my own school, Auburn, quicker than any school because it's my school. It's where my degree is from. And Wilson, my son's third generation. Let's talk SEC basketball, Mitch. Bam! I'm fired up. I'm drinking cabbage juice, man. It's good.
That stuff's got some diesel in it, I'll tell you. Good Lord.
Rob, Brenden, it's good to see you guys. And Rob, you started it off. I've got to give a shout out to my school, the Memphis Tigers. A hell of a win yesterday.
That was awesome.
My wife was threatening me that we were going to get kicked out of the apartment complex because I was going a little bit crazy near that 24 to nothing run. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And God,
I'm gonna need some video of that. You tell your wife next time to pull the camera out, and we will totally embarrass you on this. Bro.
Might do a live stream of me watching a Tigers basketball game because and I've explained this before. I used to cover Memphis, but Tigers basketball and Tigers football is when I can be a fan. You know, the rest of the time I got to cover the SEC, and obviously I got family ties to UK, and that's great, and it's a lot of fun. But watching a Memphis game at home or whether I'm at the FedEx Forum or Liberty Bowl, I can be a fan. And yesterday, man, I was going crazy. We had our dog barking, and I was just jumping up and down, real excited, and just a hell of a win. I mean, that was just – I woke up this morning. I've got a Memphis Tiger football hat on for the AutoZone Liberty Bowl this year. So really, truthfully, just a overall great win. I'm so proud of Penny. I'm so proud of the team. Got the American Athletic Tournament coming up in a week or so. So it's going to be awesome. And Rob and Brenden, I really, truthfully, I'm going to make the case for Memphis, and we'll talk Chris Jans and Mississippi State. But Memphis deserves to be in the NCAA tournament. I know they lost 4 straight in the conference. I know what's happened, but you can't take away from the non-conference wins. You can't take away from the big conference wins over UAB, USF, and FAU, who they just beat FAU last Sunday. I was at the FedEx Forum for that game. So if they make another run at this and go on a run where they win the midweek game and they go on the road to beat FAU on Sunday, go in the conference tournament, they're a top 4, top 3 seed, things could get really interesting for the Tigers here in the next week or so. So a lot of excitement, and I'm really excited to kind of watch from afar. I'm actually going to be writing an article later, hopefully today, about Tigers peaking at the right time and getting through this and kind of channeling that inner Memphis, that grit and grind, and getting back to Memphis basketball. So a lot of exciting times. So wanted to say that before I even started about talking to SEC basketball.
No, I mean, and I agree with you. And who was it? Brenden last week on our show talked about the dog days of February. Or as they say down here in the deep South, February.
Who was that?
Heavy. Yeah, it was one of our regulars on the show. But I'm with you, man. I love college basketball. I love sports because you just – the lessons that you draw. Keep fighting. Don't quit. If you get knocked down, get back up. Squeeze your hand as hard as you can. Now squeeze it a little harder. Someone's always going to get up a little earlier, work harder than you are. Mitch, SEC basketball. Yeah. I watched on the color TV. I told Brenden, through the neighbors, they had the blinds pulled up. So I watched the whole game. That cable's expensive, man. So Tennessee goes on the road to Tuscaloosa, in a hostile environment, and gets the win. And Dalton Knecht scored about half as many points as he normally does. Brenden, that is the biggest road win of anybody this year in the SEC, was Tennessee going into the Coleman Airport hangar, Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, and getting that win Saturday night. You agree?
I mean, look, it's timing is everything in this whole deal. It's peaking at the right time, getting at the big win for the big mo, right? I mean, this is what you want going in to March. This is what you need to feel like that you are, all, season long in the discussion. Then people start to doubt and start to, say you don't have what it takes, because all the people like us make these conversations about what team's great. Yeah. I think they're making a huge, huge statement.
Yeah. Brenden,
by saying, hey, don't forget us. We're going to be in this conversation, not just to win the SEC, but maybe to win the whole thing if they play it right. So
I mean, Mitch, that Alabama game against Tennessee, that was impressive.
That was top tier SEC basketball, and my dad called me earlier this morning as I was out walking the dog on our normal morning walk, and I told Dad, I said, Dad, you've been around SEC basketball for, he's 58 years old. He just turned 58. And I said, Dad, you've been around SEC basketball for over 50 years. I said, never in the history of our league, and even dating back to the 90s, has our league been so talented from top to bottom. I mean, we were talking about this. We've got 9 legitimate teams that could win the SEC tournament and next week in Nashville.
Correct.
9
I agree.
SEC tournament teams that could win the SEC tournament. 7 to 8 of those could have a legitimate shot at reaching the Final Four. I mean, things have to go right. You got Kentucky, you got the top feeders, and then you've got Mississippi State, who was one of the best defensive teams in the country. I know we're going to talk about Chris Jans. I know we're going to talk about the Bulldogs. They're one of the best defensive teams, and I can guarantee you, if you're a Houston Cougars, you don't want to see Mississippi State on an 8-9 line in the second round and playing in Memphis. I guarantee you don't. Yeah. Because they're physical, they'll pound you in the mouth, they'll hit you in the face. That's what Mississippi State does. You've got teams like LSU and Ole Miss that are right there. I mean, really, truthfully, they are right there for the picking. They've had a couple bad losses, but they're still good teams. Ole Miss has got Matthew Morrell and Musa Cisse, and they're a really, really good team. They've won 18 in a row before finally losing in the conference play. Then you've got LSU, who's beaten several top-tier SEC teams. They started off slow in a non-conference. They had some bad losses. But this is an LSU team that's dangerous. When you get in this tournament play and you get in March, anything can happen in March. Anything can happen in Nashville. And that's what we're seeing across this SEC footprint. I mean, basketball in this conference has never been so wonderful and so good. And you have to give credit, as much as Craig Sankey and his crew are trying to shuffle college football the way that they are, and we'll save that college football discussion for another day. But what he has done for this basketball conference and what he's done for women's basketball, I mean, mirroring men's basketball and women's basketball right now, you really can't tell the difference in the SEC. When you go look at the SEC women's tournament that starts on Wednesday, again, you've got 9 teams that could win that SEC tournament. You've got about 5 or 6 on the women's side that could go to the Final Four and reach that pinnacle. Obviously, South Carolina is your perennial favorite. You've got LSU. You've got Coach Yo and Ole Miss, who went on an Elite Eight run last year, who was, I think, within 5 or 6 points of reaching a Final Four, being the 3rd SEC team in the Final Four last year. So basketball in this conference is so dadgum important, and we're seeing this attendance numbers. I mean, look at what Mississippi State has done. They have sold out of every home SEC game this season. Ole Miss has sold out of 5 SEC home games this season when they're not playing Kentucky. The Ole Miss has not played Kentucky at the Pavilion this year. Yeah. Florida's got attendance numbers. Auburn's got, I mean, look at Auburn. I mean, they're camping out for seats for games against South Carolina and other. I mean, they're camping out on Tuesday night for those games that play on Saturday. So the SEC basketball and the SEC is such a great place, and I hope to have the opportunity to interview Craig Sankey next week in Nashville. We're kind of working out his schedule with my schedule, and hopefully I can get 10 minutes of his time just to talk about basketball in this conference, because I'm so passionate about the SEC basketball. I can tell you, Rob and Brenden, I grew up going to the Humphrey Coliseum when the Hump was not renovated. It was old. It was outdated. I can remember going to the Tad Pad, Coleman Coliseum, Thompson Bowling before the renovations. I can tell you so many stories about those places. I mean, you'd go to the Tad Pad, and Rob, I don't know if you remember.
I remember it well.
They had those troughs. You would have to, I mean, as a 10-year-old boy, you're standing next to grown men trying to take a leak in a trough, in a horse trough. So
it was a WPA project. It was built back in the 30s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how far SEC basketball has come. Now every arena, and I know people like to hate on Coleman Coliseum and whatever, but almost every arena in the SEC is newly renovated or brand new facilities. They've all got practice facilities. Basketball in the SEC, man, it's beautiful. It's exciting. And really, truthfully, I'm just so excited and so honored. I say this all the time on this show. I'm so honored to get to do what I do, to tell these stories, to be a part of a very small part of this conference, because I'm so passionate about the basketball of this conference, whether it be men's or women's. I guarantee you, I can't go to Greenville this weekend because I'm going to Nashville next weekend, but I'm going to watch every women's basketball game starting on Wednesday morning and watching those games and growing these games, because I know when I have a kid, I'm going to be taking them, whether it be a boy or girl. If they're a girl, we're going to go to every women's basketball game at either Mississippi State or Ole Miss. If it's a boy, we'll do the same with men's, because it's so important to grow the game. I know baseball is important, softball is important, but basketball, man, it is that kind of that bridge between that seasonal depression stage, gets people out of the house, gets people excited, and you get 2 basketball games a week. SEC basketball, man, I love it. I'm so excited about it. And Rob, I can't wait to see you in Nashville in a week.
Yeah, and it is. I'm with you. And Greg Sankey, Mitch, you got to remember what Mike Slive did before he left, saying ramp it up because the SEC Network is coming August of 2014. And that was a shot over the bow. And it was a good thing because millions of dollars that would not normally be invested into basketball is going that direction. And you talk about the practice facilities. Hell, Audrey and I did the show Friday morning from the Vitamin Shop in Oxford. Justin Ross and Matt Price, his partner, they're sponsors of this show. And we were out at the Oxford Regalia on Jackson Avenue, and we spent a lot of time. We ate at City Grocery for lunch in Oxford. God, it was unbelievable. Being a good Scotch-Irish Catholic, I had the no fish only on Fridays. We had the blackened catfish from the Mississippi Delta with coleslaw and this special sauce on toasted bread with the great cornbread and a big old slice of chocolate cake about the size of cantaloupe. And the place was packed. We went around the square, and Audrey had not been to Oxford in a long time. I bet I've been to Oxford a couple hundred times over the years. I love these college towns, and it is Southern. You are in the South. It's not some scrubbed up PC crap. You know what? It is the South. I love it. It's a college town. The people, the facilities in Oxford, and you know what's going on in Starkville. I've said it for years. Mississippi State got way ahead of Ole Miss in the facilities war. Now Ole Miss, we drove 18 miles an hour around the campus out of respect to Archie Manning. But Audrey had not seen it. So we spent most of the day Friday before we came back up to Memphis. And I got to tell you, Mitch, I'm right. You're right. This basketball, it's great. College baseball, it's starting. Hadn't gotten into SEC play. That'll be the weekend of the, 15th, 16th, and 17th.
While we're down there in
St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, we saw Swayze, Swayze Field. And Oxford, you pick it, Starkville, the district, whatever. By the way, one of our sponsors, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, has a new line of clothing called Down South Acres. A couple of guys in Summerville, Tennessee, making authentic, great-looking Southern clothing. They've got them with crawfish, with ducks, and all the different states. Like they got an Oklahoma shirt with panhandles, of the state all over it. It's incredible. And they've got some of the coolest stuff for Ole Miss. But the one from Mississippi State was called the District, the Cotton District. Talk about that, man, how much pride there is in these towns. And, you're damn right, Mitch is optimistic. I don't allow gloom and doomers on this show. You want to sit on your ass and watch the news every day and just hear a bunch of negative stuff? Go for it. By the way, Mitch, Audrey and I watched ACC Network Saturday morning. Roy Williams and Coach K at the Carolina Coaches Convention.
That's awesome.
Wasn't that awesome? I love basketball.
Yeah, I watched that as well. That was great.
It's awesome.
I see a comment here, and I want to, and I know, I think, Rob, this is one of your friends, Rob Anderson.
Yeah.
I think he follows me on Twitter. Yeah. Athens and Tuscaloosa should be ashamed of where they play home games.
Wait, continue reading.
The Gators should be thankful too, or worse than their facility. That is the dumbest comment I've been to Athens and I've been to Tuscaloosa, and I love Tuscaloosa. Coleman Coliseum is one of the most one of the most dope places to ever see college. I love that.
You can say pretty much anything.
Dope. Brenden, can we get the Millennial Dictionary? I like that term.
Millennial.
Keep
that's
rolling,
dope,
Mitch.
Dude. That's
He lived in Boulder for a long time, basically.
That's dope, dog.
I'm from Memphis.
Come on,
like I say.
Look,
man,
I ain't from
Memphis.
I'm from Florida. That's dope. Okay.
I mean,
go.
I don't understand. And let me say this. I don't mean any disrespect to the older generation.
Yes, you
do.
But
the older generation, man, they are so just.
Not
they
dope.
nitpick every single little thing. if you notice, the old school generations, the one who rolled out a lot of those vintage logos. They wanted the new logos. They wanted to look sleeker. Now us younger generation, man, I can tell you from a Memphis person, a former Memphis student, we're rolling back all the Memphis State stuff, man. I just bought like $100 worth of Memphis State apparel that say just Memphis State on there. And I know that Ole Miss people are trying to bring back Colonel Reb and still young and hip. Yeah, look, Rob Anderson, my guy, you need to come hang out with me. I will show you a good time, my brother. We will have some fun. I'll keep you young.
Hey, look, my kids, if they've taken all of my old Auburn, my retro stuff. Yeah. I mean, they've got 60 shirts, Wilson and Max, and Hallie's got some, but Wilson took one pile of 25, and I'm talking about with the eagle coming through it. Look, people do love the connection to the past, the present, and the future. That's the cool thing about it. And I will say this though, Stegman Coliseum, aka the Stegman Morgue at Georgia. I mean, Georgia's campus is constricted between the Oconee River and the railroad track. They've got to do something. Here's the thing about Georgia. Auburn makes a living of getting players out of metro Atlanta. Yeah. And Georgia, they just, for whatever reason, football is so big. How can you be, and Brenden knows this, Florida is an everything school. I think they've won 265 SEC championships in all sports. It's unbelievable. But you got to say, again, fans, Mitch, your description of SEC basketball is right. And every generation thinks that the one that follows them is a bunch of idiots. And we know that drill. It's fun though, because when you get around, if you listen to what Roy Williams and Krzyzewski were saying in that deal on ACC Network, they're right. If you don't adapt, you're done. And you don't give up your principles and your core values. You just you can understand what people are talking about. But that doesn't mean that you lower your standards to make the dumbasses around you feel less uncomfortable. Yeah. Always raise the bar, but also understand that bottom line, every generation is a little different, but don't lower your standards. But that's all it is. I mean, Mitch still young and hip. Yes, he is. He is young and hip.
I appreciate that. And one thing, and speaking of young and hip and kind of adapting, Rob, we're going to kind of shift gears just because I know I've got like 7 minutes left, so I got to get to work. But Ole Miss and Mississippi State have a very legitimate shot at playing in Nashville. I don't think people realize that what happens in the next, 4 days will dictate if Mississippi State and Ole Miss play for a third time this season in Nashville. So as journalists and as media people, as a Mississippian, if Mississippi State and Ole Miss were to play each other in Nashville, Mississippi State will have the chance to end Ole Miss's season and send them to the NIT, and Ole Miss will have the opportunity to take the series over Mississippi State this year and do it in a neutral environment where the arena, hypothetically, I know it probably won't be because you got Kentucky fans, but that arena could be split down the middle between red and blue and maroon and white. Rob and Brenden, that'll be a hell of an environment if that happens in Nashville.
Yeah, well, by the way, I said this on the show Friday with Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, and Doug Dean, and I were talking a little round table basketball. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Every time Kentucky wins, I can just hear the price of hotel rooms in the metro Nashville, Davidson County area going through the roof because the Kentucky fans are going to take over. It's going to be Catville, and Brenden knows it.
I know.
Brenden knows it.
I know. Look, the one thing is for sure, it's funny because when we do shows like this is the perspective. And I'm not talking smack, but tell me, that you're a big time program without telling me, you're a big time program. I mean, look, we go to football games. It's nuts. You there, Rob?
Oh, Franz is asking for the link. He said, link, please.
I don't know. You guys cut out on me for a second.
Did you send the link to Franz?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll send it to him right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well,
keep going because I was going to send it, and you said you were going to send it, and so Mitch didn't go. But I said that you said that you were going to send it.
All things get confused, but I have a direct hotline to France, so
You
don't
do.
worry. I do.
Right.
It doesn't. It's like on Signal Chat, dude.
Yeah.
I think it's right to his bloodstream.
Well, look, let me
but
throw
I was
something.
just saying.
Keep
I was
going.
just saying when it's. You go to obviously a Gator game, you're looking at, an insane amount of human beings, when you do these big program games, you get used to sort of, seeing this every game, because everyone's getting up to play you. Right.
Yeah.
And if you followed your team long enough, or you look at the Urban Meyer years or all that kind of stuff, they were calling it Gaines Vegas because it was, because it was. So, I've seen that when Kentucky comes to town, what it's like because they travel, right? So that's the whole thing in the SEC. If you're a fan in the SEC of a big or of any program, everyone knows it's about, okay, how well do you travel to your bowl games? How well do you travel to your away games?
Correct.
How well do you represent the road? That's all about how much smack you can talk, and there's layers of this stuff, when you're a fan in the SEC. Here's Franz. And so, and I'll bring him in right now, Franz Beard. Hi, Franz.
Hi, guys.
Hello, Franz Beard.
Hey,
friends in DeVal's Bluff, Arkansas.
You can join in on this. I was just explaining or saying what it's like to watch a program sort of, like Florida, a la Florida, when and obviously Spurrier, watching sort of the escalation of your program being a smaller program into a big giant program where and what it's like when, teams like Kentucky come to town because they travel so well, because everyone wants to get up for your big program. Everybody wants to come to Gainesville and, win one and all that kind of stuff. Don't you agree to some extent, Franz? I mean, I've only lived this with you for a decade, literally on road trips and going through this with you. So.
Well, hold on a second before he does, because I know Mitch has got to check out. He's got to go put on his cape and be super banker. That character that Milburn Drysdale made popular on the Beverly Hillbillies, super banker Milburn Drysdale. But Mitch, I mean, and I wish you could stay on with Franz because we're going to have some fun. But I know that the finance world is calling you. But I got to say, Mitch, love your enthusiasm. But damn it, ask the questions, ask the tough questions, because the duty, the role of the free press is to hold those in positions of authority accountable. And being blackballed by a school or media organization, whatever, because you ask tough questions, shame on them. Shame on them. You know what? As long as they're legitimate questions backed by facts versus, don't traffic in rumors, but damn it, ask the tough questions. Yeah, you got to do it, Mitch. So close out. I know you got to get going, but I love you being on here.
Friends, good to see you. I wish I could stay on to talk with you. I always enjoy your work. But Brenden, Rob, thank y'all so much for having me on. Follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8, TheMitchDavisShow.com. Going to be covering the women's SEC tournament from home this week before taking off to go to Nash Vegas early next Wednesday morning. Got to get there for the Ole Miss and Mississippi State practices there at the Bridgestone Arena. So I'll see y'all there.
Do you have a YouTube channel? What do you?
I have. Let's see here. Podcast is on Apple and SoundCloud. So the Mitch Davis Show on both of those. So check out that.
We should talk sometime very soon about your show.
Yeah, I would love to. I would appreciate that.
All right.
All right, guys. I'll holler at y'all.
All right,
Mitch, take care. I'll talk to you later today. Appreciate it. Mitch Davis down in
Scoop him up like a biscuit. Scoop him up, Rob, like a biscuit.
He loves his stuff, man. He's been with us since we started August 9th of 2019.
Get him out of that banking job.
He came on with us. I think he's been now, Franz can relate to this, like 500 college football, high school, basketball, baseball games in the last 5 years. That's pretty cool. Franz, I thought about you Saturday morning. Audrey and I are watching on the Color TV, ACC Network. ACC Network, Roy Williams, Coach K. Have you seen that thing from the Carolina Coaches Convention a few weeks ago over in Greensboro? I'm telling you, when Audrey and I were up in Charlotte about 3 weeks ago to see Wilson, my son lives up there, works up there in the Queen City. And Tate Davis, one of my pledge brothers, lives up there and took us all to dinner Friday night. God, I love that guy from Thomasville, Alabama, which is in L.A., Lower Alabama. And his nickname, by the way, is Vegas. there's something. We're SEC, but I do not want to see the ACC go under. I do think they need to do some things, but watching ACC Network and you see all the history of Roy Williams and Coach K. You know Roy Williams. That was an awesome, awesome interview with Wes Durham. I think the quote of the deal was Krzyzewski and Roy Williams both said, you're not going to have any success in the stock market unless you invest. And that's the same in sports and in life. If you don't invest hard work, time, and effort, and your passion and your love, you're not going to get anything out of it. But I thought it was awesome. You're a basketball savant. Love it when you're on here. You're a savant about everything that you care about, which is why you're such a huge part of this show. But talk about your takeaways from that and what a special time of year this is for college sports fans and fans of anything.
Well, I'll start with one thing. The ACC screwed up when it expanded the way it did.
Yes.
You've got people in there who there are no traditional rivalries with them. We used to have a tournament when I was a sports editor of a newspaper in North Carolina, in Rocky Mount. We had this thing every December called the Big Four Tournament. Wake Forest, Duke, North Carolina State. They came to Greensboro 2 nights, packed the Greensboro Coliseum. People scalped tickets for $300 and $400 to get in there. And at that point in time, Duke was the bad program.
Yeah, you're right.
In there because it was pre-Coach K. It was actually pre-Bill Foster because
Dick Butters was the AD that hired Krzyzewski.
Well, he's also the AD who hired Steve Spurrier. So he's a guy that did pretty well with his choices, let's say.
Yes.
Tom Butters was and a good guy, former Major League Baseball player. So he understood a lot about sports from a perspective of sports being everything that drives you. If you are a professional, that's your job, that's your life, is your sport. And Tom Butters understood that, and he found coaches who had that kind of drive and that kind of passion, which is why he hired Spurrier, which is why he, and everybody said, you got to be nuts, which is why he hired Coach K. And look what happened with both of them. But here's where the problem in the ACC is. You used to have 8 teams in the ACC. That's it. And it was quite a league. I didn't mind them expanding to Virginia Tech. I thought Virginia Tech was a good school to add. I thought Georgia Tech was a good school to add. But then you start getting in, you got Syracuse in there, Pittsburgh in there, Boston College in there. You got, they did their darndest to get Rutgers in there, and Rutgers went to the Big Ten. But what's gone wrong with the ACC is the perfect example of what happens when you let college presidents make decisions and you take it out of the hands of the people who are actually business people.
Yeah.
And we tend to forget in all of our talk about this. I mean, we had recently Bill Carr, formerly the athletic director at Florida, died. I call him the last Boy Scout because he went to his grave holding to the notion that a scholarship should be worth something, that an education should be worth something. You come to school, you do that, and you build loyalty and you build friendships and things that last for years. We've gotten away from that. Not just the ACC, but everybody. And that's where the problem is now with college sports. I've talked to several coaches who tell me one thing. You go recruit a kid, and the first thing the kid says is, what's in it for me?
That's right. WIIFM. And friends, I like this. David Arnoff, Dr. Arnoff, just said the ACC was trying to garner the TV markets. The SEC has Vanderbilt, a founding member of the conference. So you can't kick them out. They could leave and come back at any time if they wanted to, as could Sewanee, Tulane, and Georgia Tech. But I got to say this, Rutgers. Rutgers is kind of the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten. They're there. They pop up on the radar every now and then with a decent football squad, but that's about it. They just collect a check. I'm telling you, as a guy that's in business and manages people's money and on a wealth management team, been doing this 33 years, hell no, I would never take on a client. First off, I couldn't take on anyone that was seemingly suffering from mental incapacity. So think about the people I could not have client accounts with. My compliance department would explode. They go, you cannot have, with that guy. He's incompetent. He can't even remember his name. I'm telling you, I would be very careful. We need to start testing these conference schools that are getting these checks, because we're adding 2 in the SEC, and say, what are you putting back into the conference? Okay? You can't, there are 2 kinds of people in every organization, in every room. There are investors and there are takers. And if all you do is take and you invest a little bit, I got to say this about Vanderbilt. Where are the crowds at their baseball games? All I see are people disguised as empty seats. There's no excuse
the Whistler.
For that. Yeah, the Whistler. Although that guy, man, I'm telling you, don't even get me started on him. But friends, there's no excuse. They ought to be packing that stadium for what Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt baseball do. I don't know how Clark Lee gets up in the morning, because we talked to Chris Lee about this, who covers Vandy for Rivals in the Southeastern 14. There's no excuse. And you just talked about the ACC. I think they need to shrink that. That's a conference that needs to shrink back to its original footprint. Why not do it? Because that's where there's the most interest and the most passion. The folks in Syracuse, they need to be in the Big East. They need to go back to where they were. I'm telling you, I think we're going to start. Everybody wants to wear retro gear. We're going to start having retro conferences come back in vogue. That's just how I see it, because from a business standpoint, that works. When you've got very few people with business sense in leadership positions, we need more people that have a business background, that know how to read a balance sheet.
Well, here's one of the real issues that you've got. You've got 19 schools now in the ACC, way too many, and they know it.
Yeah.
You have 18 in the Big Ten, again, way too many. You essentially have 2 separate conferences trying to run under one umbrella. Here's where the SEC and why Greg Sankey was smart. There is a physical, I'm talking about state by state connection. Oklahoma is connected to Texas and Arkansas. Yep. Arkansas is connected.
Look behind me at the map. Look at it. It's all connected.
It is all connected. So you have real rivalries there.
Yeah.
Because of it. The Big Ten has expanded outside of its wheelhouse. The ACC has done the same.
Yeah.
I always thought that the ideal situation would be this. You have 96 teams that play Division I football. You have 12 teams in 8 conferences. You have a conference championship game that serves as the first round of the playoff. And then you have 8 conference champions emerge. And in 3 weeks, you've got a national champion. To me, that always seemed like the ideal situation if you would do that. But there's one slight problem with that, Rob and Brenden. It makes sense to do it. And as you all know, from having watched the NCAA in its infinite wisdom operate for years, they are a special kind of stupid. Yeah. They really are.
They work at it.
They
practice it.
Well, original thoughts die quickly in the NCAA's head because they can't stand the solitary confinement. Um, I'm just convinced that common sense is a real problem. This is, you look, guys, this is basketball season, but what are we talking about here? Here, instead of the possibility of one of the really great SEC tournaments we've ever seen, because you have legitimately 6 teams that could make the Sweet 16. You think about it.
Let's talk about that, because that's a question from one of the people. Pick your Sweet 16 SEC candidates.
Well, Kentucky, I think, is having watched them play, and with Ivicevic now able to play as he's playing, Kentucky could win it all.
Yeah.
They're the one team that nobody wants to play right now.
No.
And you look at them; they've got Ivicevic, they've got Bradshaw, they've got the big I can't pronounce his name. Then you got Reeves and Trey Mitchell as your power forwards. You got Thiero. And then you've got all those guards that can shoot. Thank gosh, they can run you out of the gym, and they don't have bad shooting days. It just seems they got too many guys that can shoot that if one guy's not hitting, they just rip him off, sit him down, and put somebody in who can. You got Tennessee that can defend as well as anybody in the country. They can defend you. I'm concerned about their depth. They really are only 7 deep. And I think they've got a real issue if they ever get into a situation like Florida did, where you have over a 4-minute stretch, Florida got called for 8 fouls. South Carolina shot 13 free throws. There is no defense, none, for a free throw. You may be the greatest defensive team in the world, but if the other team is scoring at the foul line, you can't defend it.
That's right.
Florida is capable, but I don't think. I think getting to the Sweet 16 is going to be an issue because they're probably going to get stuck on that 8-9 line or that 7-10 line, which means you're going to play second round. You're going to play either the number 1 or the number 2 team. Florida needs to be a 6 seed, and I can't see how they're going to do there. Auburn can do it. Auburn's got to have a lot of things that go right. Auburn's got to make shots. When Auburn's making shots, they can beat anybody. When they're not making shots, they're really vulnerable. They are truly, truly vulnerable. Alabama is a team that if teams play their style, if you're willing to run with them, they will run you out of the gym. The only way you can beat them is you've got to grind. And that's why Tennessee beat them in Tuscaloosa Saturday night. Tennessee was willing to grind. When Dalton Connect only scores 13 points and you still win, you have been in a grind. Now, it's hard to imagine that a game that's decided in the 80s, high 70s and 80s, is a grind game. But the way Alabama plays, if you hold them less than 90, it has been a grind game.
Yeah.
And but they can do it. South Carolina is as underrated a team as there is in there. And all you got to do is look at the fact that they limit you typically to fewer than 23-point attempts. They put their heels beyond the line and they defend you outward, and they make you shoot. Instead of shooting a 23-foot shot, you're suddenly shooting 26 and 27-foot shots. Makes a big, big difference right there.
Yeah, it does. Well, thinking about this, the SEC and the best teams, Dalton Connect, when they lost at home 63-59, Tennessee did at Thompson Bowling to South Carolina, he had 31 points. The rest of his teammates had 28. And then you look at a team like Auburn that plays 11. Well, the Berminator, Leor Berman, has an ACL injury. And I read on Auburn Undercover last night, out for the season. They got fortunate that Jalen Williams, who was injured in the Kentucky loss, was able to come back, and he played at Tennessee Wednesday night. That was a quick week and a half out, but he was back. I look at South Carolina. they've got to play Tennessee in Columbia. I believe that game's tomorrow night.
Mhm.
Tennessee's still got to play Kentucky in Knoxville. But nobody in the SEC historically has ever beaten Kentucky as much as Tennessee does. They've won over 80 times in that series. Now, then you've got Alabama has to make a trip down to, I still call it the O-Dome, because that's what it was called. The
That's
O'Connell
what it
Center.
is.
France calls it.
Yeah, the O'Connell Center, the O-Dome. And, you know, and friends, it's a funny thing. The air-supported domes was a friend of my dad's, an engineer, was working on a project in Osaka, Japan. And he said, Browne, he said, we were running out of money. And they said, well, you got to finish it. He said, being engineers, we said, okay, let's put our hard hats on. Let's get our pocket protectors out and let's start thinking. You know what they did? They came up, they used conveyors and fans and created an air-supported dome in Osaka, Japan. And Roy Geiger came back, and he was also the engineer that built the Carrier Dome at Syracuse.
Geiger. Same guy that made the Geiger counter?
No, not the same one.
All right.
But Roy Geiger was an incredible engineers. Engineers are the best. Architects can design the most beautiful building in the world, but without engineers,
hell of a
it will not move. Well, that's Georgia Tech. No, they're not in the conference
I'm
anymore.
a rambling wreck, but what the heck?
Trying to keep it in the
Yeah.
sports lane here.
Yeah, no, I know. But I mean, Georgia Tech, by the way, needs to embrace college football again, because that I do miss playing them. But friends, it's going to be a tough. Think about this. These last few games, and Auburn's got to play at Missouri Wednesday night, and then they come home and play Georgia. One chapter at a time. As fans, yeah, we can look ahead, okay? But this is a hell of an ending. Tennessee's got a brutal couple of games at South Carolina, Kentucky. Alabama's got to play at Florida. I mean,
I want you to think about this.
Yeah.
If Alabama wins 1 out of 2, they finish with 13 wins. If Kentucky wins both its games, it finishes with 13 wins.
yep.
If Tennessee loses both its games, it finishes with 13 wins. If South Carolina gets 1 out of 2, they get Tennessee and they get Arkansas. They get 13 wins. 4 teams tying for the championship.
Oh, if Auburn finishes,
Then you got Auburn, which could win 2, which should win 2. I predicted that. I predicted they would go 3-0.
No.
So you got Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky. We could have a 5-way tie for the SEC championship. You tell me this is the
Unlucky
best
number.
league in the country?
Yeah, and that's just what's crazy. A while back, and I think you were on the show with me that day, I was saying I think the winner of this league is going to be 14-4 or 13-5. It's that competitive. The SEC. All right, friends, got to play some history with you right now, and Brenden will love it. Thinking about history.
If you're wondering, I just have a bucket of Florida hats. It's just a bucket.
Well, it's a good-looking
There's
hat.
probably 300 of them in there.
It's the original F. I love retro. I love history, traditions, and heroes. And you think about this. I got to ask you this about some football stuff right now. Spring practice is underway. GatorBaitMedia.com. Y'all put out a ton of great content, whether you're a Gator or not. You need to subscribe to this because you're going to be smarter for it. SEC, way too early predictions for next year. Alabama flipped one that had been committed to them. Antonio Coleman, defensive lineman out of Saraland, Alabama, superpower, 7A. He flipped back to Bama from Auburn over the weekend. Don't count Kalen DeBoer. I'm just going to say something right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the Red Elephant Club, okay? This organization is the machine behind Alabama athletics. And I'm telling you right now, folks, they have been kind of watching from a distance, NIL. A couple of weeks ago, they started getting involved. You better watch your ass, folks. The Red Elephant Club is back in the game, okay? And they are serious about Alabama. And with NIL being what it is, remember, Alabama under Saban, the mantra, as Gary Harris of Tide 100.9, a regular on this show, said, was, why do we have to give to NIL? We are the pinnacle of college football. We're paying for season tickets. We're paying for priority seating. Now we got to do NIL. You know what made them slip into this motion of like, okay, Nick Saban's gone. He didn't like NIL. He hated it the way it is. So now the Red Elephant Club is going, we don't want to lose our spot. Folks, if you think Alabama's been recruiting well, get ready. The Red Elephant Club is involved now in the mix. They're involved now, all their chapter meetings. They're going to get into NIL, and you're already seeing it, the effects of it. Kalen DeBoer, he may be from South Dakota. Maybe he's got some good pheasant hunting land, Coach. I'd love to go hunting with you. But this is serious, friends. The Gators, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Arkansas, every school in this league has money. Why are some schools late to the party?
Well, let's start with one thing. Everybody needs to understand one basic concept. NIL, now it's legal. What put Alabama on probation in 2000 is legal now. They went out and bought David Payne, went out and bought a big defensive tackle out of Memphis. Now it's all legal. And this is going to be the wild, wild west until we get smart. We start our own organization, put a commissioner in there, have enforceable rules. Right now, there are no rules, except the people who've got the money are going to get the players. And you name the sport. LSU and South Carolina, for example, have the money. They can go get women's basketball players. Imagine that.
Yeah.
LSU went out there this year and they lose all these players to the Major League Baseball draft. So they go out there and bought them a bunch of players.
Yeah.
The replacements in there. This is going to redefine the SEC. It's going to redefine every single conference. This is why the ACC is going to lag behind. This is why Florida State's upset. And Florida State should be, but there's nothing they can do about it. They signed off on this deal that they'll be getting chump change until what? The year 3098?
2036, yeah.
Is it really just only that? I thought it was like 3000.
No, I agree with you. It feels that way.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Big Ten. There's 14 teams of the Big Ten. 26 of them will get into the NCAA tournament in basketball.
Yeah. They'll give some of them 2 or 3 bids.
Tom Izzo, who hasn't won a national championship since 2000, will be praised as the greatest thing since they invented sliced bread, because he's going to get it like a 5 seed, which he deserves, maybe a 13. And he's going to get a 5 seed, and he's going to win a game. Everybody's going to be talking about, boy, that Tom Izzo.
What a great coach. What a great coach. Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame. Why is it that Billy Donovan, who won back-to-back and won 500 games at a place like Florida, which has no basketball history, why is he not in the Hall of Fame? That blows my mind.
Well,
anyway, let's get back
politics.
to this concept.
Yeah.
The concept of this is that people are, we're going through an era now where the only teams that are going to survive are the ones that are going to pay the most money. It's why Chip Kelly left UCLA, because UCLA has no commitment to pay. Meanwhile, over at Southern Cal, they just call up all these Hollywood people who went to school there and say, we need some money, and they'll peel off here's 50,000. Will that help? It's all I got in my pocket right now, and that's kind of the way it works.
Well, friends, I'm going to throw something at you. But you talk about UCLA. They've got the Hollywood crowd. I mean, I remember talking to George Klein when I'd go into WHBQ doing the show with my friend, the late Jeff Weinberger in Memphis. And George Klein was Elvis's best friend. And he used to tell me stories about the players at Southern Cal and UCLA, when they were out there, this is back in the 60s and the 70s, they were already working on the sets in Hollywood with the movies. They said they'd be doing an Elvis movie and there'd be all these Southern Cal and UCLA football players there. They've had it for a long time. And let me tell you something. The Red Elephant Club, they got the right to do whatever they want. They've always supported, they have always supported Alabama. I know plenty of people who were members. And they kind of were like a lot of people going, damn it, why do we have to keep paying? But you know what they're saying now? Damn it, we just got to do it. And they've got the resources to do it. And Alabama, like every school in this league, you just got to say to yourself, either you respond to the punch in the face or you lay down and you get stomped out of existence. You better wake up. The bell has been rung, and you run one of two ways. You run away or you run to the fight. Warren Buffett always says, he's still alive, when the tide rolls out, you find out who's been swimming naked. Okay? You're going to find out which schools in the SEC are serious. They've got a collective, the Grove Collective at Ole Miss, over 11,000 members. When you start getting grassroots populist support, IPTAY at Clemson started in 1934. I pay $10 a year was the original deal. And Davis Babb, the CEO of IPTAY, we have him on the show from time to time. He's amazing. They bring in 35 or 40 million a year. So that helps to offset what they don't get from the ACC revenue sharing plan that, say, an SEC school, they're getting 30 million, maybe 35. SEC schools getting about 50. Those numbers should go up. But, Dr. Arnoff, Rutgers brings in the New York TV market. Nothing brings in the New York TV market. I mean, they already had, I guess, the Big Ten, but I think it's more of a pro market. But there's factions of college football and basketball fans of every school in the country. Look, New York City, the financial district, is made up of people from all over the country. One of the biggest hedge fund managers up there, Paul Tudor Jones, went to PDS, where I went to school, and MUS, from Memphis. Huge duck hunter, worth over $5 billion. Okay, he lives in Storrs, Connecticut, works up there. That's your typical, that's New York. Now, the average people up there, I don't think they watch college football. I think bringing Rutgers, what did that do? Okay, it's kind of, there's an old saying, why take a good-looking girl to the beach? Why bring sand to the beach? There are going to be a ton of them there anyway. What did they gain? And you're right about the ACC. What did they gain by bringing in Syracuse? And bringing
here's
in
the issue.
It doesn't make any sense.
North Carolina State, Duke, and Wake Forest have fans that will pay, and they have alumni who will pay.
Yeah,
they have this thing called the Moorhead Scholarship at North Carolina, which we had when I was at Rocky Mount. We had a guy that was given a choice between a football scholarship and a Moorhead Scholarship. He chose the Moorhead Scholarship. They gave him $25,000 at the beginning of every semester, and all he had to do was pay his tuition, and the rest was his. Mr. Moorhead was one of the starters of a little company called Union Carbide.
Wow. Holy shnikes. Tuition was probably, what, $500?
Back then. You go to North Carolina State, and you got all this tobacco money. That's North Carolina State.
Yeah.
Wake Forest, the R.J. Reynolds Company. Duke, the tobacco company, American Tobacco Company. And see, those people, Clemson was there too, could rally the kind of support. Virginia, big money up at the University of Virginia. We tend to forget that, they want to be snooty about their academics, and they should be, but they've got money and so forth like this. And this is where it's at now, is you look at how they've expanded and who they brought in. They brought in Miami. Miami has yet to win an ACC championship in football since they brought him in. They thought, oh boy, we're going to win national championships.
Yeah,
Miami
correct.
Hurricane, and they have yet to win one. I mean, you look at this. Here's the interesting thing: Clemson has won 2 national championships, and FSU's won one. I'm talking about in the 2000s. Okay, look at what's happening in the SEC. LSU, Florida, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia. That's 5 different schools that have won national championships. Go back to 1998, and you got Tennessee in there.
Yeah.
6 different schools in 26 years have won a national championship in football. You go to basketball, and yeah, they got North Carolina and they have Duke in there. But since they joined the ACC, how many championships has Syracuse won? How many national championships has Syracuse won since they joined? How many has Boston College won? None, of course. How many has Pittsburgh won in anything? None, of course. And this is the danger that you get when you expand, when you have school presidents, because these are all fine academic institutions. Pitt, Syracuse, man, you can get a great education there. But can you compete with everybody else in the other sports? And this is where the SEC has been smart about its expansion. All the states are connected. You've got really good academics at every single SEC school.
Yeah. You know what, friends? And I like comment from Daryl Benton's Smoky Mountain hams and cured bacon. Y'all have a great show. Thank you for that very much. He's a Tennessee Vol over there in Madisonville, Tennessee, near Athens. By the way, Brenden, that smoked bacon, I'd love to have these folks as a sponsor. And he says it's a mom and pop organization, not real big, but friends, check them out, man. Benton's Smoky Mountain. There it is. I had some of that a few weeks ago over in Atlanta. Oh my goodness. It is incredible. Look, Dr. Arnoff, you're right. Dr. David Arnoff is a very, very smart guy. Lives up in Panama City in the Panhandle. They did try to get the Eastern Seaboard. Friends, you're right. And the aforementioned Paul Tudor Jones that I was talking about, hedge fund manager, very smart guy from Memphis, big duck hunter. He's a University of Virginia graduate, hence the basketball arena, John Paul Jones Arena, named after his father. And I know his father in his mid-90s was still sitting courtside at every Memphis Grizzlies basketball game at the FedEx Forum. But I think about this, the money that, UVA and UNC, go back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, well, in the early 2000s, the SEC schools, most of them used to get 80 or 90% of their annual budget from the state legislature. What's happened is all these other schools have risen and their alumni have gotten into the state legislatures in Florida and Alabama and Georgia. You pick the state. And now what you got going on is you've got schools like UVA, UNC, maybe 5% of their budget comes from the state, and their mottos are state located, privately funded. And that's happening at Auburn, at Alabama. I don't know about Florida, but
Florida has not taken a dime of state money for athletics in 40
years. And I'm talking about academics. I'm talking about, for the whole budget. Yeah, I know Auburn and Alabama take no state money, and Florida doesn't either. Okay, that's important. But I'm talking about your budget because the budget at a school like Alabama or Auburn or Georgia is probably 1.2 to 1.5 billion. Think about that. Is coming from private funding, so much of it is. So at what point, when do these schools start telling the federal government when they try to tell them how to run their schools and what to do? Stick it where the sun doesn't shine, okay? That day is coming. So anyway, I digress, and I'm going to go on here. But friends, I'm just going to say your description of the ACC, what they did is dead on accurate. You keep trying to bring all these schools in, and you've got all these people feeding at the trough, but how many of them are really contributing to the profitability of the conference? And the SEC, look behind me, look at that map made by my friend Barnwood Brenda in Batesville, Mississippi. You can get one of these hand carved out of cypress for like $800, and she can ship them to you for about $72. They're gorgeous. The contiguous footprint. That's why I think the next school the SEC adds will be the University of Notre Dame, because Kentucky connects to Indiana, and the Catholic Church is the fastest growing Christian denomination in the southeastern footprint, and Notre Dame already has fans everywhere. So that's just something to think about. But friends, you nailed it. It's like a consultant coming in and you made sense. The ACC, why'd they do it? Why does any conference? They're stupid.
Well,
they're greedy.
Special kind of stupid.
Greedy.
As my hero, Senator John Kennedy, says, I love the guy.
Mr. Haney.
But here, the SEC has succeeded because look at who the presidents have been: Roy Kramer, Mike Slive, and now Greg Sankey.
Yeah.
3 people who were forward thinkers, ahead of their time, and that's why they've succeeded. And they've also succeeded because the presidents in the SEC understood one thing: if we want our athletic product to benefit the entire school, and you look at what's going on, for example, at Georgia, because they've won all these national championships. Alabama, they said the same thing. At Florida, they've always said the same thing.
Yeah.
When the athletics do well, people pay to come to school.
Yeah.
And people come to pay to school. Out-of-state tuition at the University of Florida, in-state tuition, I don't know what it is nowadays, but out-of-state tuition is 2 or 3 times what it costs to be an in-state student.
About 3 times.
For example, if it costs you $10,000 a year to go to Florida and you're in-state, it's going to cost you about $25,000 a year out of state. And that's all money that comes in. The University of Florida right now is sitting on more than $2 billion in cash. I'm not talking about endowment money. I'm talking about write a check money. They got $2 billion in their checking account.
Is that for debt service though on projects? I mean, nobody could keep $2 billion in cash. With interest rates what they are now, yeah. But that's that's got to be committed to something.
This is how much money is being generated from people coming to school there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes,
like what they get from the Gatorade Trust every year, which contributes to them and so forth like that.
What percentage of Florida's enrollment is in-state versus out-of-state? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I got to know that.
Probably about 90% is in-state.
Whoa.
And we've got, maybe, let me check that, maybe 80. If you count the grad students, it's about 80 because, Florida, for example, we probably have 3,000 Chinese students who are here as grad students. Florida's engineering program is just out, and material science programs are just off the charts good. But you look at this and you look at the number of students. We have 66,000 students who come to school here.
But not all in Gainesville. You mean system wide?
No, I'm talking about Gainesville.
66,000.
Yeah. The Aggies and Texas are going to, Texas is coming in. They're bigger than the Aggies. The Aggies have 70,000. And Texas is bigger.
Yeah. Hey, unfortunately, we run out of time. But you know how many engineering students Texas A&M has? 20,000. 20,000. And Florida, I don't know how many Florida. Friends, can you find out for us? I'm trying to wrap it up. I'd love to know how many students they have in engineering, because Florida's one of 6 schools in America that has a vet school, a law school, and a medical school. And it's
all on the same campus.
Yeah.
All on the same campus. Here's the other thing. We got a med school, we got a veterinary school, we have a law school, we have an engineering school. Everything is all on the same campus. We got 66,000 students here.
Yeah,
you know,
I did not know it was that big.
Which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. We've run out of time. Brenden, I'll tell you what, friends, this is unbelievable. And I'm going to tell you, Daryl Benton, your Tennessee Vols, it's tomorrow night. It's at South Carolina. It's going to be the big game. You know, this is the most exciting. This show's been awesome. We could go for 3 days. We'll be back on tomorrow, friends. We'll get you on again during the week. Your knowledge of basketball and North Carolina history is freaking awesome. I mean, when Audrey and I were cutting our way through the mountains of Western North Carolina about 3 weeks ago, Friday, we stopped at 2 new Buc-ee's, by the way, Crossville, Tennessee, and Sevierville. 74,000 square feet of Buc-ee's. God, I mean,
it is Wawa on steroids.
Yeah,
you know?
it really is. It's awesome.
100. You know, the over Daytona Beach Buc-ee's has 100 gas pumps, and you go there. You go there 3:00 in the morning. They got a waiting line to get one of those 100 gas pumps. You go inside. By golly, you know. Every kind of sugar bomb that has ever been invented, they've got it.
Hot brisket.
Brenden goes there for the Vienna sausages.
Yeah, I don't like sausages.
Most people would say they're Vienna sausages.
I don't like those. I don't like them at all. I don't like
Vienna
them.
and soda crackers
because they give me heartburn and I don't like it.
If you've ever been to Georgia, there's no such place as Vienna.
Georgia with you.
Vienna, Georgia. With you. Hey, Vienna, Georgia, in Dooley County. That's where
I went to Atlanta with you, and we went to some rib place. Or where did we go? Matt's Ribs. Fat Matt's. And we had barbecue, and I bit into what I thought was a rib sandwich, and I bit into it, and it had bones in it. And I almost broke my tooth off. I said, why is there bones in my rib sandwich?
Because they didn't debone it. Hey, I'll tell y'all something. I'll ship y'all some Craig's barbecue sandwiches. It's pulled pork loin with chopped up pieces of apple and coleslaw in it, and this awesome sauce wrapped in wax paper. It is so good. And then Cozy Corner is another one in Memphis. Holy cow, you get the sampler plate with 2 big old ribs and a Cornish hen or piece of chicken and the beans and the white bread at Cozy Corner Barbecue in Memphis. That's another great one. Look,
think about this. We're adding in Oklahoma now. So now there's a reason to go to Dink's Barbecue in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, the place that has the greatest sauce ever in history. I get it sent to me by the gallon.
A home of Phillips 66, I might add. Hey, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, man. We are blessed beyond belief to have great producer like Brenden Martin, unbelievable mind like Franz, the Iron Duke Beard, and Mitch Davis, all our sponsors, all our guests. Check them out. Follow them.
Franz is on the Buddy Martin show tonight, right? Franz? No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And guess
Iron
what?
Duke Monday.
Guess what? We have the Alabama, they screwed Eli Gold. I can't like these people for there's no reason to like them. The new guy may be good, but nobody says touchdown Alabama.
Touchdown Alabama.
You're never gonna have it. You're never gonna have that. That's the sad part.
Yeah. I mean, Eli has been torched, which is dumb. But nobody ever said they're really smart there. But that's okay.
Oh boy. Yeah. Shots fired.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something. It is this show every day. I wake up early in the morning, really early, so excited to do it. But man, talking and our viewers and our listeners, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, and smash the subscribe button and go to your iPhone or your Android and allow notifications so you'll get immediate notification when we have a show on the SEC Sidelines Sports Network or SECU.
And if you're watching on Facebook right now, all you have to do is like the page, follow the page, and you'll get the same thing. Double your pleasure, double your fun, wherever you want to get it. It's all good. That's what Franz does.
And we got the Iron Duke here.
We're going to talk about the drama unfolding, the comments and stuff like that tonight, so it'll be good. Check us out. I'll try to join you since you're going to be on.
Good. I love it when you join us. You know, we need to talk anyway because we got.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
We need to talk anyway. You got a pretty mouth. Thank you.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.